because we all got one, so we have to hang on to it.
That's right. All right, good morning. We will call this meeting to order. If you'd all stand to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So did you
All
have
right,
trouble getting
good
out?
morning.
No. It's drift going around the haystack, you drift quite a little
Yeah.
bit.
It's February 24th. This is the Broadwater County Commissioners meeting. We will call this meeting to order. Thank you for coming on this snowy day. Couple of housekeeping items. Broadwater County Public Meeting Policy follows Robert's Rules of Order. Purpose of this policy is to open Broadwater County public meetings to all county citizens. We realize we have a fiscal and fiduciary responsibility to conduct county business as efficiently as possible for all Broadwater County residents. Commission meetings are recorded and are on YouTube, so please state your full name prior to public comment for the record. Any separate conversations need to be removed from the meeting and conducted outside. Outbursts will not be tolerated. Public comment will give each person who wishes to speak 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, and all comments should be directed to the board chair. So with that, we will start with public comment. All right, is there any public comment this morning? Tim, please state your name.
Good morning, Tim Ravendall Townsend. Just a real quick question. Last week we understand that the stipulation for dismissal on our open meeting law situation here in Broadwater County was signed by the judge, and it shows that there is an award of $39,63.44 to be paid by Broadwater County in attorney's fees. And my question, if I can get that answer, is the other side of this case has attorney's fees also, and if you would please, the commission, explain to the people who is paying that and how much that figure is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. And as is our practice, we will answer public comment after all public comment has been heard. Is there any other public comment?
I'm Dwayne Holm. I would like to know why we're having public comment before we hear what's going on at the whole meeting, why we can't find out, ask questions after the topic. I believe that's a order that's supposed to be done before it's voted on. Thank you.
All right, any other public comment?
My name's Alan Wright, and I have a question by the article or the proceedings between the county commissioners over the open meeting policy. The judge ruled. Was there any comments from the judge on what not to do, or was there any comments from the judge pertaining to and recommendations to the commission boards on the open public meeting law? And the other one, since we're here today for the resolution, the two resolutions that are on the agenda, is there a possibility, do you have copies? Have these resolutions been made up, or if so, could I have a copy of it today?
All right. Any other public comment? Public comment? Public comment. All right. Tim, as to your question regarding the open meeting policy and what was decided, per statute, whenever I'll give you the statute here, 29305, whenever an employee of the county is sued, it is obligated by law that the county will cover that person. Regardless if you want to or not, that is a shall in the law. In fact, I will read it so that there's no confusion. 29305, immunization, defense, and indemnification of employees. 1, the purpose of this section is to provide for the immunization, defense, and indemnification of public officers and employees civilly sued for their actions taken within the course and scope of their employment. In any non-criminal action brought against any employee of a county for a negligent act, error, or omission committed while acting within the course and scope of the employee's office or employment, the governmental entity, the employer, shall defend the action on behalf of the employee and indemnify the employee. So there is no question that that is required by law. You can understand the reason for that. You could easily drive an employee or an elected official into the poorhouse by multiple frivolous lawsuits, and if a member or the commission didn't like them, you could say, well, we're not going to defend them, and you could break somebody. So that's probably why the legislature determined that that law was important. Elaine and I were sued as county commissioners within the scope of our work. Therefore, we are covered by law. We have no choice. With the decision, what happened is there was a request by Brian Morris, who was Commissioner Salifka's attorney, put to Tom Butterwoods, our attorney, with a request to settle at Franklin's request. This was probably done to keep this from becoming a court battle, in which it would come out that not only did Elaine and I err in the open meeting law in not having an immediate full vote of the board after the emergency vote was taken, but also that Franklin had himself violated open meeting rules multiple times. So it would have been the pot calling the kettle black. Part of that was a request that we would cover the attorney fees for Franklin, because it is not good for the county to continue that kind of a squabble. We agreed to it. The total at this point is somewhere around $14,000. We don't have all the bills in yet. So that's that for you.
Madam Chair, just for clarification,
Yes.
if I may. I mean, I understand this is not a back and forth, but just for clarification.
I'll allow it.
One last point of question. Is this being paid by our insurance through MACO, or is this being pulled, whatever the total might be, coming out of our legal fund here in the local coffers and or PILT or whatever? Could you expand on that just a little bit, please?
I can, and that's a good question. The MACO insurance will not cover an employee who is sued while doing their job.
Okay.
That is the purpose of the legal fund. So that will be covered from the legal fund.
Thank you.
And that's just an insurance policy, I guess it's pretty widespread.
Thank you.
You bet. Dwayne, throughout the meeting, and has happened the last couple of weeks, any item on the agenda that is of significant public interest, we do hear public comment at that time. The purpose for the open public comment at the beginning of the meeting is so that you folks, the public, can comment on any item they would like. Once we get into the agenda and ask for public comment on any item of specific and significant interest to the public, that has to be only on that particular item. Alan, I don't have the final comments from the judge, so I can't answer that question without a release or paraphrasing. I'd rather read it verbatim and would be happy to bring that, or you can go and get that from Val next door.
Yes, Madam Chair, because by what I understand, and it may not be 100% correct, because sometimes what you hear doesn't necessarily mean what it is. But I was kind of curious, because I kind of took it that the judge got duped, and I want to really see how he worked with that.
You can go and get his comments from him just next door.
Yeah, because there wasn't anything in there last Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm asking the question, because I asked last Friday, and all I got was a copy of the signed stipulation between the parties.
And that's all you're gonna get unless he made more of a statement, and then that would be in that paper.
Right,
So that's
because
probably all there is, Alan.
I guess because of money spent in the issue, what was the judge's comment? I mean, even though the parties
That's all
settled.
we have, Alan. That's all we have.
Okay,
To your other questions, the resolutions that we'll be discussing today have been available here in the courthouse for anybody to read, and we can certainly get you copies
Oh,
downstairs of
okay,
those.
I don't come to every meeting, so yeah, okay.
And that was in the legal ads too.
Is that what's in the paper is,
The legal ad specifies what we'll be doing, but it also has a sentence that says copies can be obtained from Commissioner's office, the Clerk and Recorder's office, and whatever office it pertains to, planning or what have you.
I didn't really find it.
All right. All right. We have 1 minute, it looks like, before our first public hearing. I think what we'll do is just, let's see, it's the resolution to elect, resolution on county elected official succession plan. I'm just gonna pass those out since it'll take just a minute to get to that point, if that's okay with the commission. There's 1 and 2 and 3. All right, so it's 10:15. Public hearing. We will close this regular commission meeting and open up for public hearing. Resolution on county elected official succession plan. What this is a succession plan in the event that an elected official could not continue through their term. This is a plan that would put together steps to actually bring in more input, more transparency. It reads, it is the policy of the Broadwater County Commission to set forth a succession plan for filling a vacancy in Broadwater County of any elected official position. This policy is based on Montana Code Annotated and is to be followed in the event a vacancy should occur. The purpose of establishing a plan is to maintain and maximize transparency in the process, welcome the input of the public, fully vet a potential representative of Broadwater County citizens, and make every effort to ensure the most qualified appointment is appointed. This policy is necessary as Broadwater County is a nonpartisan county. Broadwater County elected official succession plan will follow Montana Code Annotated, and we have several pieces of code attached. This is something we decided to do after this past 2 years where the 4 counties surrounding Broadwater County had vacancies on specifically the commission board. Right now, Park County is dealing with a absent county attorney, and of course we dealt with that too not too long ago. For Gallatin and Lewis and Clark, they're partisan counties, so what happened is the political parties put together 3 people that they would like to propose for the job, and then it's the decision of the commission to choose one of those people. We are nonpartisan, as are Jefferson and Mara counties. So the process is a whole lot less defined in law. The only thing it really says in law is the 2 commissioners shall appoint a 3rd commissioner. So Jefferson County did something that I thought was really smart, and they opened up a public hearing, a public interview structure, and that's kind of the genesis of this idea. This establishes that there will be sufficient advertising of the position. It specifies and determines a structure for how interviews will be conducted so that there is equity for all candidates. And then it sets up an advisory board of all the elected officials. And that would be 3 county commissioners, the county attorney, the clerk and recorder treasurer, clerk of court, justice of the peace, and the sheriff. And they would all have a responsibility to partake in reading applications, interviews, listening in, being there, and then also putting forth their recommendation for who the most qualified person is. This would all be done in public, again with the idea of maximizing transparency so that everybody knows what's going on. So that's what the succession plan is. Are there any questions? I'm going to go, since this is a public hearing, I'm going to ask the public first. Are there any comments, questions regarding this policy? Tim?
Madam Chair, Tim Ravendall, Broadwater County. My question, I'm all for moving forward with a transparency formal action here in the county to make sure that we don't get locked into a quagmire, if you will, as what happened in Gallatin County when nobody knew what to do because the first 3 weren't acceptable and then the second 3 weren't for sure, and it just continued on. Lewis and Clark faced the same thing with their commission seat, where they were kind of buried into a bureaucracy. So that's the side of this that I'm concerned about. The transparency and public involvement is wonderful, and I applaud that move. I am concerned as far as your advisory board being consisting of only elected officials would eliminate outside citizenry participation in that. And so I would urge the commission to take a close look at making sure that that board or council or whatever term you give that, that it is consistent with open process for the public participation. I think there's room to make that an adjustment, and I think it would be in the benefit of the citizens of Broadwater County. Thank you.
Thank you, we do address that. Per statute, it is the county commissioners that would make the decision. So the idea of getting all the, and this came from Mako, getting all the elected officials to have a vote for an appointed position is important to, for the public to be involved. There is a part of this that involves the public, but also the public at the next election has the opportunity then to vote on this appointed person.
Yes,
But in the practice, establish, you know what, I'm gonna read the whole plan so that everybody's on the same page.
I
And
understand
it's
the
just-
process, so I'm not questioning the process, and I understand that the
Except the
commission
process
does
does
have
include the public, Tim, and I think you missed
statutorily,
that.
the remaining 2 commissioners make the decision.
I'm gonna read the succession plan so that you all have a
Okay.
full understanding of what it is we're talking about. Maybe I should have done this before. The succession plan shall, 1, establish a structure of advertising a vacated elected official position. Upon a vacancy, the position will be advertised as widely as possible, including the local newspaper of record, for no less than 3 weeks. 2, this is numbered wrong if you guys notice, establish a structure for interviewing qualified applicants. All qualified applicants will be interviewed publicly at a designated and advertised public meeting. The same questions will be asked of each applicant by a neutral moderator. Questions from the public will be incorporated into the questions the moderator will ask. Questions must be submitted by the public at least 1 week prior to the public interview or following a timeline set by the commissioners. The order for questions and answers will be determined by a drawing and will alternate equitably. If there are too many applicants for a single day's meeting, all applicants will be expected to interview for the necessary consecutive days. And number 3, establish that all county elected officials shall act as advisors to the commissioners regarding new appointment. Advisors will consist of the county attorney, clerk, recorder, treasurer, superintendent of schools, and election administrator, that's 1 person, clerk of court, justice of the peace, and the sheriff. The advisors shall make recommendations to the commission in a public meeting. So it does have
Okay.
a piece that involves
Thank you.
the public. So that's a very necessary and important part of this. Any other public comment or questions? Yes, Linda.
My name is Linda Huth. I understand this only pertains if the office is vacated. Is there a possibility of including something to cover what happened here in the last year? If a commissioner becomes ill and can't attend several meetings, is there a junior commissioner, or so that you wouldn't face the same situation we've had here for the last year, where you would have a tie-breaking vote?
No, there isn't. Per statute, an elected official, any of them, has to work 1 day a month, 8 hours a month. That's it. So when you do have somebody who's ill, when you do have somebody, some counties actually have commissioners that leave for the winter. And they'll call in for 1 meeting. And that's the extent of the work they're doing for the money they're being paid. and for the responsibility they hold. There's nothing that can be done on something like that. Elaine was able to attend on, some of the meetings by phone, and that's something that could be done. But yeah, per statute, there's nothing we could do on that.
It'd be
Even from the
nice.
hospital.
Yeah, Elaine did call in from the hospital multiple times. Yeah, and that is something Elaine did look into as well, as some questions that were asked were proxy votes, giving that to somebody else, like you said, a junior person, and that doesn't work either. So, good question. We did look into that. Any other public comment? Yes.
To follow up on what she
And
said,
state your name for the record.
Melinda Hall.
please.
to follow up on what Linda said, we listened to her on the phone, yes, but there was one time when all of a sudden she wasn't there. So could we possibly, instead of just put up the phone, have a Skype where you could physically see and know that the person is there, rather than a phone that they can leave and go up and walk away, and how do we know they're really sitting there? In the case of that time when the phone got, disconnected, we didn't know how long she had been gone off the phone, where we could at least have a Skype.
We could certainly look into that. It is off the topic of the succession plan, but we will actually take that under advisement. Of course, it always comes down to money. All right, any other public comment? All right. Any comments from the board? All right, if it's okay with you guys, I would like to suggest that we take the comments under advisement and revisit this for a vote next week. Any,
I'm fine with that.
That's okay with me.
all right. So we will close that public hearing and move into another public hearing. This will be for a resolution on local government review election. And this has also been available in the courthouse, but we can certainly get anybody copies. And before we hear any public comment, this was discussed at length at conference 2 weeks ago, and it cleared up a lot of questions that we've had and brought forth some new thoughts that we should take into consideration. I also have frequently asked questions that were passed out last time, if you guys want another, and the Broadwater County Local Government Study Commission report from August of 2006. So I'll just put those,
Are these duplicate?
they are, yeah. And there's only one copy of the report. First of all, a little bit of history on this. In 1972, Montana had a constitutional convention, and one night, a group of people working on the Constitution were at Jorgensen's and scribbled out on a cocktail napkin this idea. And we are the only state in the union to do this. Every 10 years, by the Constitution, every county puts to the voters a question. Would you like a review of your local government? Now, this is not a review on the individuals, it's a review on the structure of local government. So, the first year this was done, the Constitution determined that 1 mil would be used to fund the local government study commission. Goes to the voters, A, do you want it? B, who do you want to serve on it? And then back then it was just established there would be 1 mil put towards this. Over the years, the legislature has changed this a little bit. 10 years ago in 2004, there were 2 questions put to the voters. One, do you want a local study commission? Voters across the state by and large voted yes. The second question was, do you want to pay 1 mil for it? By and large, the voters across the state said no. So we have local study commissions, but no funding for them. Here in Broadwater County, there were 3 people elected: Ernie Nunn, John Hahn, who was the chairman, and Brian Obert. There was no budget for them. These 3 actually paid for most of the process out of their own pockets. So this year, a couple years ago, I'm not sure which session, the legislature made a change. we have a resolution, and it's the one that we'll be talking about today, and it is defined in law word for word. This is not, the commission cannot change anything, except for we insert Broadwater County, where it says name your county. And then there's two other questions. Insert the dollar or mill amount, and insert the number of members. So it's one question put to the citizens. Do you want a study commission? How many people do you want to serve? And how much do you want to pay for it? So a couple of questions have to be answered by this commission. First off, I want to just clarify, the commission has never gone to a public meeting to write a resolution. Resolutions are written by the commission. If a citizen has an idea, a citizen can work with the commissioner, that commissioner can then bring the idea to the commission, we work on a resolution, get it written, vetted with the county attorney, and bring it forth for public comment, which is what we're doing today. There was some mistaken thinking that we had done something with this resolution outside of the open meeting laws, that we were outside of our purview by filling in the blanks of insert the number of members, insert the dollar or mill amount, insert the name of the local government. That was our charge by law, period. So that was our job to do that, and we did. What we came up with to start, and this is certainly things that can be changed by your public comment, what we came up with was, of course, this is Broadwater County. I don't think anyone want to change that. 2 is we decided on 3 members for the local study commission, and 3 we decided on 0.5 mil to start. What was suggested at conference is instead of just putting 0.5 mil in the resolution, that we also put in parentheses approximately, and I would guess what, $6,500, because we don't know what a mill would be worth. So that's the starting point. What we need to ask ourselves, the commission and you guys, are really 3 questions. One is, if we are going to put this we have to put this resolution out, are we going to even ask for any funding? We have the option to say 0. In which case, we need to, the 3 of us in the next week, put together a proposal on how we would pay for that out of the county money we already have. We haven't done the budget, we haven't started the budget, but we would have to have by vote an agreement of how much would be taken, probably from each of the different departments, and put into a line item in the budget. 2, if we do want to put an amount into the resolution, we need to be aware of a couple of things, and that is this is not a free process. There is a ballot initiative on the ballot next November, and that's this, what we'll be agreeing. No, it isn't. Let me back up. There'll be 3 elections. This June, this will be put to the voters in the primary election. Do you guys want a study commission and fund it at such and such amount? If the voters say yes, then the question put to the voters in November will be, who do you want to serve? And we will have an election of however many people to serve on the local government review commission. That somebody's got to pay for that. One of the places that should be paying for it is the process itself. If there is a local government final report that asks for a vote, as these guys did 10 years ago, 8 years ago, then somebody's got to pay for a special election. This will also be on the ballot. This was on the ballot. The next one would be too, if it goes to that point. And that's up to the local study review commission. The election is about $3,000, and I'm guessing based on history, for the first one because there's other things on the ballot. For the second election, it would stand alone. It would be an initiative all its own. So this would have to pay for the entire election. That's about $3,800, and that's based on the last hospital election that they did. They were essentially the only thing on the ballot. But then there's some other costs. Training, we didn't think about that. The local government center conducts a training, and that's about $450 each. No, total. But They suggest, and we did this last time, that there be at least 3 members, possibly more if the citizens want more, and an ex officio member that can answer questions. That person could be a commissioner, a past commissioner, was John Flynn last time. They attend the meetings and they're there to answer questions. You have 3 people who don't know how the commission works or how the local government works. This person can answer questions. So 4 people go to training. Now you've got travel. 66 miles from Townsend to Bozeman. Bozeman is where the training's at. Person could live anywhere around the county, so that's kind of an average. There you've got a bill just for travel of $764. Food, $23 a day. Scratch that on the mileage, I added everything together. Travel is $74 roughly per person per day. Food, or round trip. Food is $23 per person per day. Lodging is about $94 after taxes with the state rate per person per night. All of that is $764. So then you think about this report, which is about that much paper. It's not the first one. These guys had stacks of paper. So you're talking about a couple of reams of paper, ink, equipment, what have you. I guesstimated $300. We can throw in a different number if you guys want.
You're gonna need a secretary to.
Administration, yes. The trust board pays about $400 a quarter for their secretary. For easy math for me, I estimated $2,000 for the 2 years. Again, we can change that if you want, that's pretty low. All travel, from home to meetings. They meet about once a month for 2 years, guesstimating $10 or 10 miles. Now you're looking at about $270 for travel to and from to the meetings. And then meeting rental space. You can meet in the courthouse for free, but if this group were to put together something like this, like was done 8 years ago, these guys had meetings throughout the county. We do pay and offer to pay up to $25 for meeting spaces. How many would there be? We don't know. I slid in $200 there. So you're looking at a total of $10,784 just guesstimating. Should that come out of the general fund? Should that come out of these people's pockets, which is an unfair request? Or should this come out of the process put forth by the Constitution? And that is setting a mill amount so people know what it is they're getting and there is a cost for it. So that's all I have. And with that, I'll open it up again for any public comment or questions. Or it sounds like we have questions from the board first, that's fine too. I'm easy.
It's not a question, it's a statement. I don't think these people should be digging in their own pockets to do this for all the people of Broadwater County. I think that there needs to be some money set aside, some way to cover it, because they shouldn't be expected to do that.
I agree.
I got it. Oh, go ahead. You got somebody out there.
Actually, I'm gonna hear from the board since we started that way. And then we'll go ahead and take public comment and then hear from the board again.
Okay, when this first started there years ago, I was in the first study commission in Broadwater County. For some of you probably don't know, it was Ted Flynn, myself, and Doug Christie. Bill Duty represented the commissioners. And I believe we got mileage. And we met, I don't know how many times we met, but it wasn't too many times. It didn't take too long. And I think a couple times there might have been, or one time for sure, maybe there might have been a couple people from the public there. There wasn't very many. And at that time, we decided to just leave everything as it was. And now it's growing into a bureaucracy. Here we're talking about thousands of dollars. I saw on the news where I think it was the city of Great Falls, if they have, they're gonna spend $137,000, I think is what their figure was. I mean, to me, it's getting out of hand. It was such a simple thing, really.
Where did they come up with that figure, Franklin? Do we know?
I don't know where they come up with it. No,
That sounds a little outrageous.
that's what I would say too, but I'm sure it was $137,000.
Just,
And like I say, we just met those few times, and it's really a simple issue. But like this, it's growing into a bureaucracy. We're talking about a couple of mills, they're talking 20-some thousand, mills roughly 13,000. So, I just don't think it's necessary for all that.
You know, I have one comment. This county used to be partisan, and when it became nonpartisan was through the study commission. That was back in the 90s.
What does that even mean?
The county used to be partisan.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then in the 90s, because I was clerk and recorder when that took place, there was a vote on partisan or
Nonpartisan.
not nonpartisan.
So Franklin, did you serve in the 80s then?
Well, the 70s, whatever the first one was. I think that Constitutional Convention was in 72, so I'm guessing it was in the end of the 70s probably. When, Elaine, you remember?
I don't.
I don't think it was in the 80s, I'm pretty sure it was in the 70s.
Some of the different things that have been done in the past by other counties, Madison County went to 4-year terms, and they are looking at funding, seriously funding a study commission to try and return that back to 6-year terms. What they had last time were 2 people who were retiring, their terms ended, all of a sudden you've got 1 commission with any experience and 2 new people coming on board. The way it works with the 6-year terms is every 2 years you have the opportunity to get somebody new, but you always have 2 people with experience. So they're looking at going back to the structure that most counties are at, and that's what we have. Ravalli County is also looking at funding the study commission because they have an outcry from their citizens, and if anyone's read the paper you can understand why, to take them from a 5-member commission back to 3-member commission, 6-year terms each. And they went to a 5 commission with 4-year terms per a local study commission that was approved by the voters. Yellowstone is looking at going to a 5-member commission with 4-year terms from the 3-member and 6-year terms that we have now. So, you know, there are some counties looking at changes. I'm not sure about Great Falls. I did speak with their commissioners, and they didn't mention anything during the breakout session on this. But in the 1990s, there was a big change to nonpartisan. There's a number of counties looking at going nonpartisan. And in 2004, there was a proposal. When Franklin participated, there was no proposal. It sounds like no suggested changes or improvements, so therefore there wasn't any money needed. We don't know what the future holds. Should the next commission be hamstrung by our not funding it to not be able to do anything? That's an argument that certainly can be made. Should it be adequately funded so that if they do propose something, that they have the money so that it doesn't have to come out of the general fund to pay for those 2 elections for starters? Those are some of the other questions. So, any more questions or comments?
I do. There would also be the cost of printing legals.
Thank you. Yeah, $22 a week plus the legals for any proposals. Yeah, that's another couple $100.
About what does that run, Trudy?
Depends on the number of words. It's based on every 100 words.
Okay.
And the first 100 is 11, and then every 100 after that goes at 9.
Thank you.
So, any public comment from the public? Trudy?
Trudy Southwick, when you're speaking about a mill or applying a mill for the funding, is that just for the dollar amount, or is it actually going to be a mill that's added to taxes?
It would be added to taxes, and it would be, if we say 0.5 mils, it's been suggested that we do parentheses, approximately $6,500, so people know what it is. But that would be above and beyond, unless we put together a proposal to take it out of the budgets for the different departments. And then it would come out probably by a percentage, 1% from every department to fund this.
Why would it have to come out of every department to fund it?
It wouldn't necessarily, that would just be one idea, but I'm not sure where else it could come from.
Why not a general fund? It seems like it would fit more under a general fund than adding more for taxes.
Well, no, coming out of each department is not adding more for taxes, it's using what the budget is now,
Right.
with no more
But adding,
taxes.
using a mill.
You wouldn't take it out of the general fund, because the general fund is what funds everything that's not its own line item within the budget. County
doesn't this fall
attorney,
under that?
commissioners, no. No, it would be countywide, so it would come out of everything in the county. The general fund is not a savings account to pay for this kind of stuff. The general fund with the budget is actually determined specifically where it's gonna go. It pays for clerk of court, JP, commissioners, finance, accounting, planning, attorneys, maintenance. Those are all the departments that fall under the general fund. So there isn't anything like a savings account that you would pay for something like this out of the general fund. It'd have to come out of the entire budget and a little bit from everybody.
Follow up?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that this was coming up on the horizon, is it that something that you could budget for and put a line item in without having to go through all this every time it comes up?
No, by law, we can't. We can, in the next week, put together that kind of a proposal, fund this at zero, but put it in the budget with a line item, yes. That part of your question we could absolutely do, but we can't do it on a continuing basis because this resolution is word for word from the legislature and the Constitution, and so we are obligated to follow it word for word.
Thank you.
Cheryl, did I see your hand up?
Cheryl Campbell, the discussion concerning money is only predicated on the fact that in June, the voters have to decide whether they even want to go beyond that step?
Correct. Yep, if the voters say no, we're done. But it's gone to the voters for them to say. And that's the important thing to remember. This is voters driven. Any other public comment? Tim?
Madam Chair, Tim Ravendall, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to comment on this important venture that we're looking at. There was just a real quick history. There was a little bit of an error in our clerk and recorder's office the last time we did a commission. I had run to serve on that commission, and for some reason, the clerk and recorder at that time chose myself to serve on that, got sworn in. We did 2 or 3 meetings and then found out that the vote actually came out differently. So I have been directly involved with the last commission. When we first started, I remember specifically that we asked for funding after we got started in that process, and we were provided pencils, a notebook, access to the copy machine at the county for copies. We did attend a one-day training seminar in Bozeman, and then from that point forward we had direct contact with the college on local government review, and we went through extensively. I served as secretary later on in the commission, and as I recall the process, not having funding to get out there and promote the concept of changing to a charter form of government, which was the decision of the commission at that particular time, and which went to the voters. Extensively, it was discussed that without funding, we weren't able to properly get the accurate information out to the voters. We recently heard that with Mr. Hofstede with the hospital, unable to get that full story out to the citizens, caused a failure at a vote the first time around. Spending more money on that brought it to the public's attention better, and then of course the result was to the benefit of that push. Without trying to get into a lot of the meat and potatoes of what happens with a review commission, I am all for making sure that the citizens have that right to participate in that review, and the process is statutorily set up to do so. I do get concerned from what I saw last time being directly involved that there becomes an agenda and there is no oversight on that commission. Statutorily, it can say that, but reality always comes to the front of the book, and there was no oversight that really kept things in an open, fair process. The commission before this last one, we couldn't even find a final report, which is required by statutory law. We started from scratch because of that. You know, again, this comes back to needing to make sure that if we move forward, this commission needs to be very careful and make sure that the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, giving that full accountability of the commission, because I have to agree with Mr. Slipka, it can very easily be blown into a new level of bureaucracy that eliminates a fair and open process. So just proceed with caution, but I do support having the people that opportunity come June to decide one way or another. And I will close it. Last time the people did say, no, we're not going to spend money on it. And so if you put money on it, with all of the other taxes that the citizens of Broadwater County are facing right now, I fear that if you put $100 on that ballot, a lot of people are going to balk. That's a reality. We're in tight times right now. Thank you, Matt.
Hugh?
Yes, my name is Hugh Van Swearington. I think it's a very serious matter, and I think people will probably vote to have a commission study, and if they do, I want it to be a thorough study, and I cannot expect who's gonna run to be a commissioner, or to serve on this commission, if they're expected to pay out of their own pockets. I don't think you'll get very good people to do it. I really don't, and we shouldn't expect them to. And we get what we pay for. If you don't pay for it, you're not gonna get much of a study, and I think it should be thorough. I think maybe we should look at really overhauling the way we do government. At least the people should get that opportunity to do it. And I don't think we pay too much taxes. Maybe I'm a minority here.
Well, you are.
I think our taxes are a bargain. I really do. I think that I'm proud of the taxes I pay for this county, and I'm proud of the school system. I'm proud of the way this government functions. And I think I get a bargain. I get police protection, fire protection. My gosh, I get a lot out of this county. I'm proud of it. And I don't think it's too much to pay $12,000 for a study. $12,000 is not a lot of money when you spread it among, what is our population, 6,000 people? It's pennies.
$2 a person.
You know, it's just not that much. We have to pay for government. Government costs money. Government serves us. And by a study commission, we're making sure that our government continues to serve us the way we want to. Anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. Paul?
Paul Bray. For the people who think we're paying too much in taxes, I suggest that they just move to Helena or to Bozeman.
Yes, sir.
Roger Halber, just a plain old citizen. I moved here 4 years ago from East Helena. I owned a $180,000 house in East Helena. I own a $450,000 house now, and I'm paying half the taxes on it. I would like to congratulate this commission and past commissions on how they have controlled the taxes and spending in this county. In East Helena, we have the highest mills of anybody in the state. And unfortunately, we had a failed education system in Lewis and Clark County, completely failed. So I would follow another gentleman's suggestion. If you think we're paying too much taxes in this county, move to another one. Discover the reality of paying taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Linda?
Linda Huth, I would also agree with Mr. Van Swearingen. If we want a study and we want a good study and we want a good job, we need to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, did I see your hand?
Alan Wright. On this county government review board, and maybe I missed something. So how many, is the entire local government to be reviewed in all areas? Or is it, what exactly, I guess, is, maybe I missed it.
Do you have that, can I get that question, frequently asked questions? It's not the function of a particular office that it does. It is the structure of government. There is, I was hoping there would be a list of the different kinds of government there are. There's a good number of different kinds of government. The past study review commission looked at an executive form of government, and that would be where you have it's the Lewis and Clark County setup. I don't think they're that kind of government, but you essentially have your commissioners that are more or less figureheads, and then you have an executor who is responsible for the budget, responsible for personnel, empowered to make certain decisions that right now come to the commission. There's a presiding form of government in which the presiding officer of the commission has much more authority and responsibility and power than the other two commissioners, and that changes every year. There's a whole slew of different forms of government. Butte, Silver Bow, Anaconda, Deer Lodge have a totally different form of government where they have 10 and 12 commissioners. There is a form of government where self-governing powers, in which we actually would have the authority to make law. It puts us in a whole different realm of following MCA. We have a whole lot more power to change that. So there's an awful lot of different kinds of local government to be chosen from. It's all already in statute. We can't just do a kind of a willy-nilly type of thing. But that's what it is changing the form of government, not the operation per department. Does that answer your question?
Pretty much.
Okay. Paul?
Paul Ray, in Great Falls, they have bounced back and forth between several different kinds of government. One involving a city manager who had the ultimate authority, one in which the commissioners had the ultimate authority. They keep coming back to a commissioner style of government. And by the way, I understand in whatever county Sydney is in, that they have 12 commissioners who each get $70,000 a year.
Wow.
They develop their resources, they can afford it.
All right, any other public
Well,
comment? Right? Any other public comment? Public comment. All right, any more from the board? We have to have a decision by March 10th on this per statute. I would again suggest that we mull over what we heard today and bring this forth on the agenda next week for a vote. Is that all right? All right. Okay, so that concludes the public hearings. We are back to our regular county commission meeting. Our 11 o'clock with Chuck Seifert of Montana Internet was canceled. That meeting actually needed to take place with the city council. So he has gone to the city council for that. So we moved COSs to 11 o'clock. Bernadette, do you have a COS for us?
I do.
All right.
I have a couple of them. This first one is between Cooper and Davis of Dry Creek. And they're just doing a boundary relocation between the two properties. This area here, about 2 acres, is being added to Mr. Cooper's property from Mr. Davis. And it's been through the review process, both, they're over 20, so sanitation isn't an issue with the state or anything.
Is that where the cabin's located, the Cooper's Cabin, is that in?
Yeah, it's right up here somewhere, so that's why they were putting that land around. Now, which Cooper is that?
Well, it was Dewey, but he died, so it'd be the boys, right? Or is it an estate?
It's a Brad, yeah, Brad Cooper.
Oh, okay. Right at the mouth of the canyon there.
Mhm.
You know where the old Murphy place, that's what Bill has there, I think.
Looks like Bob might be the one to have it.
Was it Bob?
Yes,
yeah,
Bob Davis and Brad Cooper.
Oh, I was thinking that was Bill's right there. Anyway, whichever one it was. I guess it, I have no problem as long as everything
Looks fine to me.
meets all the requirements.
I'll make a motion then that we approve the boundary relocation between adjacent landowners of Davis and Cooper.
I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to support the boundary relocation between Davis's and Cooper's. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I'm going to sign this.
So who owned that Cooper piece before Cooper?
Oh, Jake Mitchell, maybe?
Oh, you're right. I forgot.
Most of that log line was doing was on Jake's that time. First started up with
The second one is
Oh, it was Smalley's.
between Bart Tony and William Phillips up Duck Creek. And this property here used to go clear over here, just a skinny strip. So they're doing a boundary relocation to put that strip over here and kind of square this up.
Is this the lower part of Duck Creek, or what about is this at?
Upper,
This is the upper part?
isn't it? I'm sure it is, because that's where Bart's cabin is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, Dan handled this one on his own, so I'm not sure.
Well, there again, I guess as long as it meets all the requirements and
Yes, it's been through the examining land
Yes.
surveyor and the
and
sanitary.
it works out best for the landowners, it must be, or they wouldn't be going for it, so
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to support the boundary relocation between Phillips and Tony's. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
You remember this Phillips? Where's this Phillips, live, or?
I
You
don't
don't
know.
know? Okay, I just never heard the name of it.
Yeah.
See, this is past, we passed.
Yeah, I got a quick briefing on them before I came up here.
Thank you for changing the time.
Oh, not a problem.
It's sure an interesting layout around there, though.
Yeah, all these mining claims is what those are.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, these are all different mining claims that are laid out there.
Patent claims, then.
Mhm, mhm. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think you'll be getting some other interesting mining claims in here too, that we're
Excellent.
working on.
Those are interesting, I think.
They are, it's, and these overlaps get very.
I bet, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will also just make a point that mail-in items for discussion and/or signature items and agenda items may occur, I'm sorry, these items and times are subject to change. So due to the canceled appointment at 11, we did change the COSs. We'll still be here at 11:45 should more come in. But on to mail. There was a meeting this past week with Jim Muscovich with JPIA Insurance, which is the insurance company that the county is with. And they did a peer review of our detention center. A peer review is being set up by MACO. And peer review is detention center administrators from other counties come into Broadwater County last week, do an overview of what we're doing, our policies, our systems, our windows, our PE facilities, everything, and then give a report. The result of this report, Jim's goal is to save us 50% on our insurance for the detention center. The detention center is the biggest piece of the insurance we pay for the county. So this could end up being a significant savings for Broadwater County. The commission was asked to attend, and I attended this on Thursday. The two peer reviewers were there, one from Gallatin County, one from Lewis and Clark, Jim Muscovich with JPIA, Nick Korthals, the detention center administrator, and myself. It was excellent. There's 73 items of compliance right now with our detention center with the Montana jail standards. 15 items in partial compliance. If you look in the report, they are easy things. They are a portion of the policies and procedures needs to have a bit more attention. Well, we have a company that's coming in to help with policies and procedures that Nick has hired, so that will be addressed. None of those raised any alarms or concerns with any of the peer reviewers or Jim with the insurance. There were 9 items of non-compliance. Those were also fixable, every single one of them. Some of them don't apply to us, some do. Just opening my book, the facility has a procedure and practice that specifies approved actions to be taken by employees concerning inmates who've been diagnosed with HIV positive and shall include. There's no policy or procedure in place at the time of the review, therefore we're in non-compliance for that. With the yellow signal, which is the company, or red signal that'll be coming in to do our policies and procedures, that will be addressed. So those are the kinds of things that we're non-compliant on. There were only 9 items. And not applicable, we don't have any kind of junior or juvenile facilities, so a lot of those pertain to that were non-applicable. So again, there were 73 items of compliance, 15 of partial compliance, 9 of non-compliance, and 7 not applicable. So it was overall a very good review. And you guys each have copies, and if you would like to read through and then ask questions, we can certainly have Nick come and see us next week if you want, or let you read through, and then if you want, he can come see us in 2 weeks. What's the pleasure of the board?
I think I would like to read you and then have Nick come next week,
Next week? Okay,
if there's room on the agenda.
all right. And if he's available?
Yes.
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right, we have some easy mail. One is with the open meeting policy. This came from MACO. A group of us got together to talk about, there's some other counties kind of going through what we've been going through. School boards, city councils, hospital districts, so we're not alone. But one of the things we decided to do was put together an open meeting policy, a couple of different counties. And one of the suggestions was made by one of the other commissioners that we just change the last paragraph in our open meeting policy, and it's a pretty benign change. If a member of the public wishes to comment on an agenda item, they can present their request to the chair prior to the meeting. Public comment will be heard on an agenda item of significant public interest, and comments must be relevant, remain civil, and 3 minutes will be provided for each to speak. So pretty small changes, but it just opens up open meetings a bit more. If that's an okay change with you guys, it is under items for discussion, action, review, and signature, and I would like to make that change so that we counties have the same language for our counties.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
I will let the commission review this first, and then we'll hear public comments since this is of significant public interest. Franklin's reading that, one of the things that those of you who've been coming to a lot of meetings see that each week is we have people come forward asking for more money for a department, more services, more road grading, more this, more that. So this is where we spend a lot of the money. One of the reasons, or the reason that we are involved with MACO, that we attend MACO conference, is so that we can learn ways to save money. And so that's a lot of this that we're bringing forward, is working together with other counties to save money for our county.
I can honestly believe that at these conferences, you learn as much over dinner as you do in the workshop, because you're able to visit with other commissioners and hear how they do things.
I agree. And that this was over breakfast, so it was kind of the same idea. So, any comments on the suggested change to the open meeting policy?
I'm fine with it.
All right. Any motions?
Oh, wait a minute, Franklin's still reading.
And it's just those couple of words on the bottom paragraph.
Also move to accept.
Okay, Franklin?
I did before, so I'll abstain again.
All right, I will second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to make some small changes. Oh, we, before we take the vote, Tim, did you have comment?
Madam Chair, if you would, for benefit of understanding, under what process is the commission, under our current form of government, using to determine what is and what is not significant?
You know, we have a workshop at conference, talked about open meeting laws. It's more leaning on the side of significant public interest as opposed to leaning the other way. When somebody comes in for an update on, like, the roads, we've had this specifically with the road supervisor, having him give an update, the public comment that has been directed at him has been hostile, often. That is inappropriate to put our employees through. So, if he's just giving an update, that is certainly public significant interest to listen to, but it is not one that opens him up to hostility from the public for not taking care of their road fast enough, not doing this, that, or the other thing. So I guess that would be one example I would give. We'll have mail here in just a minute, and you'll see several examples. There's an issue on wastewater discharge in Shelby, probably not of significant public interest, but what's happening in other counties is this piece of mail could generate 15 to 20 minutes of public comment with the purpose of just bringing Broadwater County or another county to a halt. There is a move toward anarchy right now in this state, in this region, in this country. So this would not be of significant public interest. So that's, I guess that, as best I can, should answer your question. Yes.
Is the chair, which is presiding over the
Presiding officer?
well, not necessarily that, but.
No, that is the correct term.
Okay, is that decision made as a commission, as the board, or is that decision made, basically prior to the meetings, by, in this case, currently would be you?
It is the responsibility of the presiding officer
Okay,
to
thank
conduct the meeting, so yes, it would be the decision of the chair.
Under our policy, that's where it would be. Okay, thank you.
Under Montana state law. So, it's not just our policy, although it is stated in the policy, which is vetted in Montana state law.
Thank you.
So, all right, so it has been moved. Ellen?
Yes, Alan Wright, because when you were reading that letter from the change, it did bring up a question of, since we are going through government local review, if Broadwater County has, what type of government do we have?
Commission form.
Okay, so if other counties come up with ideas or issues that are in a different local government form, how often do those inter-counties working, that one is not applicable to the other because of the local form of government?
Doesn't happen very often because like something like this would be applicable to any county regardless of the form of government. It's a civility policy, trying to maintain civility in meetings. That's
I
across the
was
board.
just curious, because
Yeah.
could there be a conflict of interest, I guess you could say, if you have one county who has, say you have 3 counties get together, then all 3 got different forms of local government.
The basics are still the same. And some things wouldn't be, that's where you have to use your experience, you have to, know kind of what's going on.
Right, because
Yeah.
like administrative law really wouldn't be applicable to our local form of government as much as, say, Anaconda, Butte.
No, but for this, it would be.
Okay.
All right, so, question, it has been moved and seconded to approve the changes to the open meeting policy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstaining.
Franklin is abstaining. All right, next we have a survey from Robert Petch and Associates, and Bill Berglund, saw him at conference, is the representative to the airport board. He was at the airport board meeting last week, and is constantly working for those guys. I think he does a good job. That's just a survey. I was wondering if you would like me to make copies, and we each do our own answers and meld those at the meeting next week, if that would work for you guys, rather than just one of us answering all of them.
I think that is a better idea.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
All right, the next one is a resolution. This says Lewis and Clark County at the top, but ignore that. I did not have time to retype it. I would like support of the board to bring this forward. What it is, it's being presented by the Tri-County Fire Group, specifically Sonny Steiger, who is one of the experts on fire for the state. We're lucky enough to have him in our Tri-County group. That was taken to the fire district, and I went to the board meeting last Wednesday, and they voted to ask the commission to bring this forward. What it is a resolution that essentially states our support of our rural firefighters and puts parameters on the types of structures they will not save. If a homeowner in the WUI, which is the wildland urban interface, does not do what they can to make a defensible space around their home, have an ingress and an egress, then we are going to support our firefighters when they say, we're not going into that place in the middle of a fire. So that's what it is. It's more to support and protect our firefighters. They will still go to all lengths to protect human life, but they will draw a line with a structure that has not been, that has not had everything possible done to it to make it safe for a fire. I didn't want to put in the time to retyping it if you guys were not interested.
That other, there could be a problem, they don't, I guess if the state's there, that they haven't taken care of these precautions ahead of time, they're not liable to, but, is there gonna be a problem there? That's the only thing I have about it. And the place burns down and they refuse to go in, I guess, is there have we or the state or we got authority to tell the people they have to clear this area and have things like that? Is that isn't mandated then?
No, there's no law that says you have to maintain your personal property in any particular way.
Mm-hmm.
A person can build a tree house in the middle of Red and Dead if they want to. That is their right as citizens. But there are all kinds of fire protective services out there. Specifically, Tri-County will work with landowners to clear their property. They'll work with the county as a third of the partnership. We've worked with Al Bodel in the past on a joint project just for that. There are all kinds of services out there to help landowners to protect their homes and to make defensible space. What this says is, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But if you don't, we are not gonna risk the lives of firefighters to go into a place that does not have some safety parameters to it. Mike,
Do you want to read that? So
Sure.
everybody else would understand.
Mike Conkey brought this to the Rural Fire District on behalf of Tri-County Fire, and this was circulated and discussed widely at the conference, Commissioners' Conference 2 weeks ago. This is a resolution supporting the Lewis and Clark County, again, we changed that to Broadwater, Fire Council and its member fire departments. Whereas Lewis and Clark County relies on many citizen volunteers who provide fire protection services throughout the county, and whereas the very nature of fire protection services puts our volunteer forces in harm's way in the event of any fire suppression activities, and whereas Lewis and Clark County Rural Fire Council and all of the individual fire departments continue to evaluate the most practical and safe way to provide fire suppression services throughout Lewis and Clark County, and whereas it is the desire of the Lewis and Clark County Commission to support all our firefighters and endorse the Lewis and Clark County Fire Council's position to protect lives of firefighters above the protection of structures that may be in harm's way. Now, therefore be it resolved. The Lewis and Clark County Commission hereby confirms support for prioritizing fire protection services based on the threat posed to firefighters. Fire service staff in the county will be trained in basic fire behavior to properly evaluate their ability to safely engage in fire in the wild-urban interface. Homes in the wildland-urban interface will not dictate fire suppression tactics, strategies, or the location of fire lines. The Lewis and Clark County Commission has been and will continue to be committed to supporting all fuel mitigation efforts that improve the survivability of structures and enhance the safety of our firefighters. So,
Don't you think this came about because of the Arizona situation last summer?
that's exactly why it came about, yeah. Firefighters were killed trying to protect a structure that hadn't had any defensible space put around it, and they died. And we don't want that in Broadwater County. Paul?
Paul Bray, having gone through this sort of thing, it's relatively easy to mitigate things in such a way that the firefighters are protected and they have a good zone to fight the fire. They need 30 feet around the building. They need trees that are nearby. They need them trimmed up about 20 feet so fire can't leap from the ground up into the tree. It's relatively easy to do. It cost $1,000, the last one I was associated with. And now their insurance has decreased by about 30%.
Good point. Yeah, all comes down to money too, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. All right, so if it's okay with the board, bring this forward,
Yeah.
or would you rather we did?
My comment is, I'm for all that, everything, but my question was, say some out-of-stater had this big fancy home and he didn't do anything. Firefighters didn't go in there, and it burned and but I'm assuming that, Lewis and Clark County checked this out good enough that, everything is,
No matter
Correct.
what you do, the county is always hanging out there for lawsuit. We have deep pockets. Every lawyer targets counties that's worth their salt. There's no way to avoid it. Yes, this has been vetted with the county attorney. We would vet it also with ours. So you do what you can. But to what extent do you protect human life?
oh, yeah.
I think that
Oh, I know.
resolution is an easy step.
Exactly, I know, yeah. That was the only question I had, but like I say, I'm assuming that they, researched it, and if they feel good with it, I'd say, I'd feel good.
Yeah, we'll bring that forward and start the process. This is issue for wastewater discharge permits for the city of Shelby. Doesn't affect us, but if you have a friend, you may let them know. Got ahead of myself. We have Hospice Plus newsletter, Understanding Hospice and the Answers for Living it Provides. It's also addressed to the ambulance, so when we're done with it, I'll pass it on.
You know, Madam Chair, when my mom got really bad, the hospital suggested that I contact hospice. And so we did, and signed her up one morning. And by the grace of God, she was gone by afternoon. But I still get, to this day, get encouraging words from hospice in the mail.
All right, next we have claims in the amount of $43,253.44. This is for voucher date 2/20/2014. These are for the approved, the claims we approved last week.
I'll make a motion that we approve claims in the amount of $43,253.44.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve claims in the amount of $43,253.44. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We also have a notice of receipt, and this is that we have received the First Premier Bank statements. They just want us to sign that we do receive those. They were handed over to the auditors when they were here, and I did speak with Debbie with the trust board, and she said that they are happy with the investments as they are.
This needs to be changed on the computer.
It does, and we say that every single week. I will bring that to Tammy. I haven't talked to her. I keep forgetting. So do I have a motion or any comment on the First Premier Bank notice of receipt?
No, there's nothing to it.
No. Okay, could I have a motion, just so that we have that on the record for signing any document on behalf of the commission?
So moved.
I'll second. I take it that was a motion? Okay, I'll second.
That is appropriate. It has been moved and seconded to sign the notice of receipt for the First Premier Bank statement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Only have one comment. I would sure like to see him put more interest in there.
Yes. I agree. It's at about 2.8 million right now, and the trust board can use anything over the $2.5 million corpus. All right.
Is that the county foundation?
That's the Broadwater County Trust, the trust board, and that money came from the cabin sales on Canyon Ferry. It's used for recreation in the county.
I paid part of it.
Yes, you have, yes. All right, just a couple more things from conference. I wanted to bring a report to you, which I will have for you next week. But I don't know if you guys know this, the Farm Bill passed Congress. The Farm Bill's for 5 years. PILT was reallocated, but only for 1, fully funded. So that is good news. So I wanted to share that. And then the only other thing I have is an update from our discussion last week. Last week, the board authorized me to pursue what's called a fiscal audit, which is an in-depth audit. Just to bring you guys up to speed and for the record, on January 29th, the sheriff, Brenda Ludwig, came to the commission and asked for more money for her budget as the line item for paying reserve deputies was depleted. At that point, we advised her that it is illegal to pay reserve deputies as they are volunteers, much like search and rescue, much like volunteer firefighters. So what happened is, last week, the auditors came, there were some questions that came up. Last week we had a vote to pursue a fiscal audit into that practice, when it started, who knew what, who benefited, that kind of thing. I did speak with Anderson Zermillion about that, and the scope of our issue exceeds a fiscal audit. And they have an office, they propose that we are actually looking at a certified fraud examiner. A gentleman will be coming from Butte, and we'll be looking into this situation more from that perspective than the fiscal audit. So just letting you guys know, we will have a fraud investigation into the practice and the history
And that
so
was their
forth.
recommendation to go that route?
It was their recommendation, yes. So, that's all I have, but I thought it was important to bring it forward to the board. And that's it. So, that's all I have. Do you guys have anything more for the good of the order?
One quick thing was Rocky Mountain Development was supposed to be last Thursday afternoon. And they ended up changing it for unknown reasons at the last minute. And now it's this week on Thursday.
So you've got a busy week then. All right, well, it's Commissioner's Community Update. Franklin, what have you been doing this week?
You gotta go back, what is it, conservation meeting, and then on, this goes back to, I think it's February 8th. Yeah, on the 189th, flew back in. Helen and I attended that. There was 2 from Broadwater County, Rich Holderman and Robert Olson. And it was quite a deal. There was, I don't know how many people was there. There was a day almost like it's not as much snow, but about as cold. Had been 1,000, 1,500 people there, I guess, and fire trucks and police and sheriff's deputy. They had quite a, come in ahead of the plane and everything. So it was quite a little show they had there, so it's pretty neat.
Those boys been gone for a year,
Yeah,
real close.
yeah, it was, like I was surprised that many people there, but it was real good.
Okay.
And anything
That's
to,
it.
what's that?
And that and the conservation meeting is all I had.
Anything to update us with the Conservation District?
No, they're just, everything's pretty much just the same. There's some different grants they're working on, and that's basically just things they just in-house that they're doing.
So are they still working on a Deep Creek grant?
All right, and Rocky was postponed till this
Rocky was
week?
until this week.
All right.
We have a new member on Rocky's board, the new commissioner from Jefferson County. He's now been appointed to replace Dave.
Yeah, they'll have 2 commissioners running, I guess. Dave's retiring and Tom retired in December. Yeah. The conference had the governor's conference on disaster and emergency services, so we had DES for a Day conference, which was excellent. Safety meeting was last week during Rocky and during LEPC, and Amelia McEwen came down for that. Fire district, great meeting. Those guys are able to squeeze blood out of a turnip at an amazing rate. They've got another truck that they're working on. Again, volunteers working on their own time. They don't only show up for fires. These guys are doing incredible maintenance to the trucks that they have. They search out these trucks, retrofit them all in their own station. So they're pretty dedicated. My hats go off to our volunteer firefighters. So I didn't write down anything else, but no, those were the big two meetings. So that's all I've got. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, what I would suggest we do, since it is on the agenda that we'll have COSs at 11:45, that we recess for 10 minutes while we go through the claims and reconvene at 11:45 if somebody comes in with a COS. Otherwise, we will go ahead and adjourn at 11:45 if that's.
I would like to make one comment. Hats off to that fire department, because they get a hold of, they just got a 6x6, I think it's called, truck, 1 year old, has only been used just a very few times. What it amounted to was Ed had to fly down or drive down to Utah to get it, and that was the only condition. I mean, and it's a huge thing,
Yeah.
and they keep doing that. They keep getting all this equipment from state lands, and
Yet they're paying pittance for this equipment, but because they're willing to do all the work to them, they're really extremely responsible with your money. So,
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
That's been going on for quite a while, the firemen.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on there, that tanker was a tosser. Of course, that's been 15 years ago, and I guess we bought that and this tank, and we did the sandblasting, painted the inside, and baffled it, did everything on it then. And
Have you seen this new truck?
no.
I don't think I could get in without a ladder. I mean,
I don't think they can get in with that ladder.
it's huge.
But they have, the firemen have really worked hard all through the years.
They do a great job.
Mhm.
All right, we will recess for 8 minutes. Thanks, folks, for coming.